Welcome to today's video where we're going to talk about a topic that should concern all of us, the imminent collapse of the US dollar. As I mentioned before, this isn't just some hypothetical situation that may or may not happen in the future. It's a real possibility that could happen sooner than we think, and the implications would be dire for the global economy. As you may know, the US dollar has been the world's reserve currency for decades, which means that it's the currency that most countries use to conduct international trade. This status has given the US a lot of power and influence in the world, but it's also made the dollar vulnerable to external shocks. And right now, there's a big one on the horizon. The Saudi Arabia BRICS agreement to end the petrodollar system is one of the most significant threats to the US dollar supremacy. The petrodollar system has been in place since the 1970s, when the US made a deal with Saudi Arabia to sell oil exclusively in dollars in exchange for US military protection. This agreement gave the US dollar a boost as the world's reserve currency, and it's been the dominant currency in the global economy ever since. But things are changing. In recent years, countries like Russia, China, and Iran have been challenging the US dollar's dominance by conducting trade in their own currencies and creating alternative payment systems. And now, with Saudi Arabia officially joining the BRICS countries, it's a sign that the petrodollar system is coming to an end. What does this mean for the US dollar? Well, it means that other countries will start to dump their US dollar reserves, which will lead to a massive sell-off of the currency. This will cause the value of the dollar to plummet, which will lead to inflation and a decrease in purchasing power for Americans. But it's not just Americans who will be affected. The collapse of the US dollar will have far-reaching consequences for the global economy. For example, many countries hold US dollars as their reserves, which means that they'll lose a lot of their wealth if the value of the dollar drops. This could lead to financial instability in those countries and a global recession. Furthermore, the US government has been able to finance its debt by selling treasury bonds to other countries. But if these countries no longer want to hold US dollars, they'll stop buying treasury bonds, which will make it harder for the US to finance its debt. This could lead to a default on US debt, which would have catastrophic consequences for the global economy. The collapse of the US dollar would also have implications for global trade. Since the US dollar is the world's reserve currency, many countries use it to conduct trade with each other. But if the value of the dollar drops, it will make it more expensive for countries to buy American goods, which will hurt American businesses and lead to a decrease in exports. So what can we do to prepare for the collapse of the US dollar? One option is to invest in alternative currencies, such as gold, silver, or cryptocurrencies. Gold has been a store of value for thousands of years, and it's likely to retain its value even if the US dollar collapses. Cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin, are also becoming more popular as an alternative to traditional currencies, and they may provide a hedge against the collapse of the US dollar. There is more risk in cryptocurrencies, however, as it is still a vastly unregulated space. Another option is to invest in assets that are likely to appreciate in value if the US dollar collapses. For example, real estate and commodities, such as oil and precious metals, are likely to increase in value as the dollar falls. As Robert Kiyosaki says, "I only invest in things the government can't print." This makes a lot of sense since the currency is fiat. In addition to the impact on the US economy, the collapse of the US dollar would have significant global consequences. Many countries, especially those in the developing world, rely heavily on the US dollar as a reserve currency. If the US dollar were to collapse, these countries would be left without a reliable currency to trade with, which would cause chaos in the global economy. Furthermore, the collapse of the US dollar would likely lead to a major shift in global power dynamics. For decades, the US has been the dominant economic and military power in the world, largely due to the strength of its currency. If the US dollar were to collapse, this would give rise to new powers that have been accumulating gold and other valuable commodities, such as China and Russia. China is already the world's largest gold producer and has been aggressively stockpiling gold in recent years. In addition, China has been working to create an alternative to the US-dominated financial system by creating its own international payment system, the China International Payment System, CIPS. If the US dollar were to collapse, China would be in a strong position to take advantage of the resulting power vacuum and become a dominant economic power in the world. Russia has also been accumulating gold and has been moving away from the US dollar in recent years. In 2019, Russia's central bank announced that it had stopped buying US dollars and was instead increasing its holdings of gold and euros. Russia has also been working with China and other countries to create a new global financial system that is not dependent on the US dollar. In conclusion, the collapse of the US dollar is a looming threat that cannot be ignored. The agreement between Saudi Arabia and BRICS to dump the petrodollar is a significant step towards this collapse, and it is only a matter of time before other countries follow suit. The collapse of the US dollar would have dire consequences for the US economy and would likely lead to a major shift in global power dynamics. It is imperative that individuals and governments prepare for this eventuality by diversifying their assets and investing in alternative currencies and commodities. Please remember that this is for educational purposes and is not financial advice. If you enjoyed this video, please support us by liking our video, subscribing to our channel, and clicking the notification bell so you don't miss out on future categories content.